All of the wood that I use is wood that's imported from different places all over the world. I have wood that I use that's from Africa, Australia, South America, North America, Mexico, and I start with the wood like this in the rough. Well, I first started working with wood in 1972 when I was in high school wood shop, and I've always worked in wood. After I got out of high school, I came back to the United States. I was doing my high school in Africa, and I was in the construction industry, so I built homes, and then for 15 years, I was building cabinets and furniture. And then in 1986, I started doing the artwork. That was when I did the first.
So you started working with wood in Africa. Where in Africa?
My parents went to Tanzania as missionaries, and that's where I was living, and I went to a boarding school in Kenya, and the boarding school had a wood shop, and so it was in Kenya in the wood shop at my boarding school where I first started woodworking. And my father also had a wood shop at home, so that was his hobby, and that's where I first learned. The piece I'm currently working on is the most complicated piece I've done to date. And it has, I don't know exactly, but there's over 13,000 individual little pieces of wood. And I used all the different woods because they have the different colors, and then I glue them together so that there's a pattern built into the piece, and that's why I use the different colors of woods. This particular piece was designed to be displayed like in the center of a dining room table, or you know, in that kind of a setting. Then also the vases are to be displayed as you would display any other, you know, vase or piece of art, you know, on a shelf or a mantle or on a pedestal. These particular pieces have beadwork on them as well, done with the small glass seed beads, using the technique that the Eucled Indians do, where the beads are set in a wax resin compound, and then once the pieces are beaded, then they're lacquered over to protect the beads and keep them from falling out. So anywhere that you see the colors, that is the beadwork. And all the colors of the woods are natural colors in all of the pieces. I don't use any stains or dyes, so any different color you see in the wood is the natural color.
It's the natural color, okay.
Many of the beads that I'm using are antique, that were produced 50 to 100 years ago.
Wow.
In factories in Europe and Italy and France that no longer exist, and so many of the colors I use will never be reproduced again.
Where does that wood come from?
This wood at the bottom of here is called Paduke, and that's a wood that comes from West Africa. The wood on the top is an African mahogany, and then the very top piece has a piece of wood from Australia. And this particular piece has a lid, a threaded lid on it, because this was designed to be used as a cremation urn, which is something new that I've also started doing this year, is designing cremation urns and giving another option to people to keep the ashes of their loved ones in. The traditional burials, putting someone in a casket and putting them in a burial plot, was something that continued for a long time because families were living in their same places where they grew up, where their families were from. But with time, the demographics have changed and families are not staying in the same towns and they're moving. So besides the much higher cost of burying someone and the fact that you have to occupy a piece of land theoretically forever, it's becoming a problem, finding enough real estate to put everybody into the ground.
Yes. We're more and more every time, no?
This way, they can have their loved ones cremated and preserve the ashes and take them with them
When they move to a
when they
different
move.
location.
There are some countries in the world, like in England, it's already up to 75% cremation, and other countries, particularly like India, it's 100%.
100% in India. You make the designs.
I do the
Okay.
design. I have software that I use, and once I get a design done, I print up on a piece of paper the design, and then I give this to the people who do my bead work, and they use that as the guides that are influenced by the Mediterranean area, North Africa, Persia. I get inspiration from all kinds of indigenous artwork all over the world.